When I was thinking about you, I thought I was trying to come up with a topic and like a theme for the conversation. And what came to mind was living authentically and embracing your identity as an immigrant, because I've seen you do that. So, like own that identity so fiercely, and I really admire it, which is also one of the first reasons that you came to mind when I was thinking about this show. So thanks a lot for agreeing to be one of my first guests. And the show's called My Roots, My Routes. So why don't we start off with you telling me a little bit about your roots, how your journey started, and what brought you here to where you are today.
Yeah, I really appreciate it. You know, when we speak about roots, I often think about the way that I was brought up. I grew up in Ghana, and as you probably know, Ghana is similar to in culture to what you will find in most of Southeast Asia as well. Very traditional, very focused on values, very focused on culture. And so I was born in Ghana. I am Gan. That's the tribe I'm from, or the ethnic group. I grew up in Accra, lived with my parents, two siblings, and for most of my life growing up, these were the people that influenced me the most on that end. Church was another very strong part of my upbringing. And so when I think about my roots, I think of all of the people, the places, all of the experiences shared within that context and that environment that has impacted or affected the way that I think about my place within society, my place within, the world, right? And I'm pretty sure similarly, you are impacted in that way. And that's how my journey started.
That's awesome. That's great to hear. Yeah, I mean, I think, culturally, I grew up in India. It was very similar in terms of like the value and being very family oriented. So I think maybe in that regards, we had similar experiences. But I think, this brings me to my next question. I think the part that I really admire about you, which I just mentioned, is the way you've owned your immigrant identity, and even the way you spoke about, because you identify with your roots, you own it, you have made space for yourself in society because you're living that identity as authentically as possible, right? And that's something I have actually struggled to do when I came early on. I didn't know how should I be like fearful about owning my identity as an immigrant, or where is my place. I struggled with that a little bit, and I wanted to know, like, with you, what was it like? Have you always been able to embrace your identity as fiercely, or has it evolved over time with experience?
So I will tell you this, it hasn't always been that way. So the first time I left Ghana, I actually moved to Morocco. So I'd never been there. I didn't know anybody there. My parents had never been there. It was completely new. I remember my dad told me, I'll pay for you to go to private college if you don't go and you stay. I was like, no, I'm going, because I had a scholarship. Now, when I got there, it was entirely new. And what happens when you're in a place that is visually different from what you know, what you believe, what you see, right? 99% Muslim country, right? I'd grown up, mostly around people going to church, Christians. It becomes very, very different in the way that you approach it. And the effect of that actually is it causes you to really start to think about who am I? How do I fit into this? What do I know about myself? Why am I different? How am I different? And you start to hold those things dear, because if not, you will lose. You will lose that.
Mhm. That makes a lot of sense. And this is actually what I think with me. I went to undergrad. That's what brought me here to the US, right? And I was asked to take an accent reduction class. And then, when I went to class, or when I even started working, people would ask me to like repeat what I was saying. And I think these kind of small incidents and small experiences start, make you question like, how much should I adapt? What should I keep? How much should I, assimilate? And what parts do I hold on to? How have you navigated that? I think immigrants, it's natural. This is going to happen, and you struggle. Like, how much should I, keep? But then you also have to be flexible. Where do you assimilate? How do you navigate that?
It's a loaded question. So how do you navigate that? I think the first part is understanding what exactly are you navigating, right? Why are you navigating that? What is the environment that you are in, and how is that impacting it? Sorry, my son is
That's fine. That's really fine.
um, so when we talk about navigating it, you first need to understand the environment within which you're navigating on that end, and lean into that. The second part is, how do you make sure that you're not cutting yourself off from the opportunity to actually learn something new, or the opportunity to pick up on something that maybe you haven't had exposure to? Right. So when you talk about staying true to your cultural identity and assimilating, it's knowing the difference in what is good, right? What could you learn, and what don't you want to miss out on? So I'll give you an example. One of the things that I really developed when I moved to Morocco was just an openness for new things and new people and new cultures, right? When I went there, I only spoke English and my local languages. I had to learn to speak Arabic and then speak French, right? And become fluent. But also, I had the chance to meet people from Angola, Mongolia, everywhere around the world. And everyone is different there. So you have to be open to that. I also had to learn to be open to technology. Morocco is a lot more technologically open and advanced compared to Ghana, where I came from. Right, they have a very thriving aeronautics industry. They have one of the best nautical and ports infrastructure, trains, and 36 airports, right, or 16 airports in 36 regions. But when you think about that, those are all things that are new, and so you have to pick what you're assimilating. The way that they learn, the way that they go about things, the level of professionalism. You have to know the difference between what you want and what you want to keep about yourself, while keeping an open mind that, yeah, just because I'm somewhere new doesn't mean everything I know is trash, right? But at the same time, just because I'm somewhere new doesn't mean that all of the old things that I knew are just the absolute best, and there's nothing new I can bring in. Yeah.
No, I love that. By the way, what prompted you to go to Morocco? Like, what took you there?
So I'd seen a UN scholarship that was up. I'd applied for it. I just thought it was different, right? Most people go to London. Most people go to the US. It just felt different, like a scholarship from Morocco. Okay, I'll do that.
Wow.
And that's how it happened.
And how long were you there?
I was there for about 5 years.
Oh, wow. That's awesome. And do you have like a community back there, like friends there still? That's amazing.
Yeah, I do. I'm actually going there on Tuesday.
Oh, wow. That's awesome.
Yeah.
That's beautiful. again, like ties in well with communities. You spoke a little bit about the communities that shaped you growing up, family back home, church. Then you spoke about the community in Morocco that you built. I also saw that you're part of of this group called Harambians, the African community, giving back to the African community. Speak to me a little bit about, I know that you've faced some hardships through this journey as an immigrant here in the US. Speak to me a little bit about the people and communities that have supported you and kept you going.
That's a good one. So there's a saying that no man is an island, right? And it is very true, right? No one person can accomplish everything by themselves, right? It's the same reason why, they talk about if you want to go far, then you go with a lot more people. If you just want to go fast, then you go by yourself, right? Community is what gives us a sense of purpose. Why? Because service is the ultimate, mission for every single person. You create because you want to serve. You create because you want to contribute. You create because you want to be valuable. To who? To your community, just like you do, right? You tell these stories because you want the stories to inform, encourage, impact, motivate, right? And so we will consciously or unconsciously find community, right? That's the part that sometimes we don't really think about. The choice of not seeking community puts you in a community that you did not choose, right? And so if you're going to end up in one anyway, then you might as well be intentional about which ones you end up in. But also community gives us a sense of identity around the things that we do. And so when I look at my life, right, I went to boarding school. I went to an old British boarding school when I was growing up. That has become a big part of my identity. It was a big school. We had 1,500 boys all in boarding school, right? So we have a huge alumni community around the world. Then when I traveled to Morocco, I joined, a group of African students in a union. We did that. Then when I moved to Oujda in Western Morocco, I joined a young group of tech-focused students who brought the second ever TEDx event there. So we were TEDx organizers. We held a license for a couple of years back in 2010 or 11. When I came to the US, I lacked that community, right? I was born here, didn't go to school here. I moved here relatively older. And so what did I do? I joined the military.
Oh,
yeah.
Wow.
So
was that because you wanted that sense of family and community? Or?
Yes, if you kind of think about it, right, you're going to have community in the US. Like in reality, where do people find community? They find community either through the neighborhood or the community where they grew up, right? So, I grew up in LA. All of these friends grew up in LA. Or people from your school. I went to Harvard. They went to Harvard. So we connect and we gel, right? Or from, particular work, right? Pilots, doctors, right? You build community around that. But what if you don't have any of these things, right? What are you going to do? Your daily work really isn't a community. It's just a group of people that you work with, and you're going to leave and you're going to go home. But the military, right? That's just 1% of the US population that serves in the military. It is voluntary, so you choose to be part. And for me, I felt like that was the only option that I saw to really build that. And it gives you a really different sense of identity. There are about 2 million people around here who understand, what you go through, everything that happens. So yeah, that's the community that I chose, and I identify as a soldier. I'm still in, so I have a few more years to go. So yeah.
Oh, wow. I did not know that about you.
Yeah, I don't talk about that a lot for obvious reasons. I don't necessarily broadcast that, but yeah, that is part of my life.
Wow, that's amazing. And I'm sure that community, is plays a huge role in your day-to-day life. And
Yeah, for good or for bad. For good or for bad, I always say that, the way that I come across to people, it can be very different for everybody, right? Because what I'm used to is like go, 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 get it done and then get out. And today people like, make them feel comfortable. I'm not necessarily good at that. So it can be different for everybody. Yeah.
wow, okay, I learned something very new about you today. So,
Yeah.
I also read that, looking at your US journey, you spoke a little bit about some things, and I read about that. One thing you spoke about was that you became undocumented very early on when you came here to the US, and you went through that journey as well, I guess. So,
Yeah. Yeah. So that's a good one. Obviously, you've done a lot of research, so that's another part about me as well. Most people come here for education or an exchange program or something else. I came here with a visitor's visa that ended up getting expired, and I had a choice. It's either you're gonna go back, or what are you gonna do? And I figured, you know what, I'm going to give myself 5 years, and I want to be the very best of whatever I can be, and I want to see what that's going to look like. And it's not easy. It's a very, very different, interesting, hard experience. I wouldn't wish it on anybody, but I think people who go through hardships have a different appreciation for what it means to not be there. And it could have gone anyway, right? Think about it. There are about 11 million people in the US today who don't have legal papers.
yeah.
They live, they contribute. If you look at the work that I do today at Fleri, right?
Mm-hmm.
A lot of it is informed by a very unique sense of understanding of immigrants that most people do not have, right? Why? Because I know a lot of things about America that most people will never be able to understand, right? How do you move about when you're undocumented? What do you do? How do you pay taxes? Do you pay taxes? Where does that money go? What happens? There's a lot of things that you find out very quickly when you're not part of the formal system. And I understand that about that. I understand how people operate. I understand how and what they do. But I also understand the things that are their pain points. And that's where I think when you lean into your difficult experiences, it produces insights that make you unique, right? And sometimes everybody else can't see it, but that's good. If they could all see it, then there'll be nothing special about it, right? But you need to have an unfair advantage in yourself to be able to do the things that not everybody can do.
Yeah. I think you've experienced so much in this time, that you've been here since 2014, if I'm not mistaken.
Yeah.
And you've had all these different experiences. The question I wanted to ask you is, knowing what you know today and having gone through what you've gone through, what would you tell youngest, yourself in 2014, you've just landed? What is the thing that you would tell, a younger version of yourself?
I'll tell myself to really believe in myself, because everything will be okay. I can tell you, throughout your life, you're going to meet a lot of people who have a lot of ideas and a lot of advice and so many opinions. It can often feel very, very hard to listen to your own voice and to know that you know something. And it doesn't mean being arrogant, but it means you have to learn to believe and validate yourself first before anybody else is going to do that. Um, I've been very, very lucky in my experiences here. Lots of people have influenced me. Lots of people have blessed my life with kindness and all of the things. I think that's where I look back, and it makes me feel a lot more sure that if I had to start all over again, it's not as crazy as it seems. It's not as scary as it seems. What is scary is not knowing, but you only know backwards when
Yeah.
you look at it. So yeah, I will tell myself to believe a lot more in my own self.
I love that. I think that's what I would tell myself too. It just seems so much more daunting when are actually going through it.
Yeah.
So you mentioned Fleri. So before, we close out, I do want to talk about Fleri because I think what you're doing is so important. I think not as much, not maybe the exact same experience, but I know that the problem you're solving is so relevant because I've experienced loss, I've experienced family members back home going through health crisis and me not being able to do anything besides maybe just sending cash home, which I know is not super helpful. So I wanted to talk a little bit about, like, have you tell us a little bit about Fleri. And you also said that you just released a product in DC. Maybe like talk about that a little bit as well.
Yeah, I really appreciate that. I think one of the most painful parts of moving here, right, is just how far you are from everyone that you care about. When I moved here, um, I had two kids at that time,
Mm.
right? My daughters are a bit older now, and I have a son now, so three of them. But when I moved here, I left them in Ghana, right? I didn't see the oldest one for 6 years
Oh my
before she moved here. I still haven't seen my second daughter in 8 years. Um, yeah. Um, and I think about what that loss means. And you start to kind of like think about it from everybody's perspective, right?
God.
That people who don't see their grandmothers, their fathers, their mothers. And then what makes it worse, I'd grown up in Ghana, and I lived with my grandmother for about 14 years. Um, I was really close to my grandmother. I mean, I was really, really close to my grandmother.
Mm.
I still remember, a lot of things about our time together. Because I lived with her for a long time, and we had a lot of fun together. Um, I was looking forward to being able to go back, see her, just make her feel good. Because my grandmother gave me the best childhood. I mean, she used to pamper me. Um, in 2020, she called me, which was strange because usually I call her.
Mhm.
She called me and told me she wasn't feeling well, right? And I asked her if she'd seen the hospital. Her voice, everything sounded sad about it. I remember like it was in February.
Mhm.
Um, I asked her if she'd gone to the clinic. She said she did. I asked her what they said. She said, okay. I know my aunt was here, had been sending her money, would send some money. It's like, are you going to go to the hospital? She said, yes. Only for me to find out like the next day that she had taken, a potion from a traditional healer, like a herbalist. Um, and my grandmother died that afternoon.
Mm.
you know it's one of the most painful experiences I've ever experienced, but more so is the sense of extreme loss from 6 years of not being able to go back home, and you just can't undo that.
Mm.
But the worst part is the fact that it's not unique, it's not new, it's not just my story. It's that people who've lost their parents, their aunties, their children,
Yeah.
right? And you would regret so much and feel so much pain. You can't take it away. You can't change it,
Yeah.
right? And that's when I realized that having the ability to just send money doesn't actually solve the problem.
Mm-mm.
I mean, what if I could have given her like a medical checkup every single year?
Mhm.
What if I could have given her a doctor's appointment every 3 months so that she'll be in good health? What if when she was sick, I could have sent her to the best hospital?
Yeah.
But there's no infrastructure to actually do any of that. All we have is just send some money and hope it goes well.
Yeah.
And when most people receive the money, they have so many other things to do with it.
Yeah.
How do you control that? And that's where the idea for Fleri started.
Mhm. Mhm.
It's the fact that for immigrants that are separated from the people that they love by thousands and thousands of miles, money isn't meaningful enough. Money doesn't solve the problems.
Yeah.
And there has to be a better way for you to care for those people that you hold dear. If you lived back home, when your mom says she doesn't feel well, you wouldn't say, here,
Yeah.
1,000 rupees,
Mhm.
right? You wouldn't say, here,
Yeah.
20,000 rupees,
Yeah.
right? It doesn't make sense.
Yeah.
You would say, Mom, how can I help? Can I take you? Do
Yeah.
I drive you? Should I get you an ambulance? Like, we do so much more.
Yeah.
And so, Fleri is essentially a company, it's a family care solution company that gives your loved ones the care that you would give them if you were right there next to them.
Mhm.
And the product that we launched is our care memberships, right? Where today, if you become a member of Fleri, you get a family care manager who lives in your country where your loved ones are and
Oh.
coordinates care, calls them, checks on them. You'll get a monthly report that comes from her. You get a primary care physician that is available for them 24/7 if they have questions, they want to set appointments virtually, all of that. And then you also get access to our network of healthcare providers, from insurance companies to hospitals to therapists to specialists. You can pick and choose one, right? And the best part about it, you get access to our prepayment credit, which allows us to be able to prepay for the care that your loved ones need so that you pay us right here where you live. It allows us to be able to get healthcare to them a lot faster than if you had to go to Western Union, go send money, someone picks it up, takes them to the hospital. It allows us to be able to take care of them a lot faster. But most importantly, it allows us to respond to emergencies like what my grandmother had, right? Without having to worry about, do I have $1,000 for this? Fleri solves it, pays for it, and then gives you time to be able to pay back that money. So that's what our membership program, does. And you're going to start seeing that offered in companies as a benefit to companies with multicultural employees. And India is one of the countries that we're looking at going into next year.
Yeah. Oh my God, everything you spoke about just, I don't know, like struck a chord with me and like makes me so emotional in ways, because and like you said, the experience is not unique because I've gone through the same thing. I lost my grandfather, who I was very close to a stroke, and there was nothing I could do other than just sit in my room because I wasn't allowed to travel. My visa wouldn't allow me to travel out of the country at that point. So I was just sitting and waiting to hear. And then 2 months later, my father had a stroke, and I couldn't see him. I mean, thankfully, he survived the stroke, but I couldn't go back to see him
Yeah.
until like 6 months later. And I was seeing videos of him learning how to speak again, learning how to walk again. And it is so heart wrenching. And it is, like you said, like sending money does not do anything, right? Like when I went back, I took him to physiotherapy. I got someone to come take him out for walks. And I also love the fact that you said you have family care managers in the location of the country, right? It makes so much sense. And I think more companies should be giving these kind of benefits to immigrants who just do not have that support
Yeah.
system here, right? Like our dependents, a lot of them are back home, they're not here.
Yeah.
So that makes so much sense. It's so important, the work that you're doing. So I really, I would love to support your journey and the company in whichever way I can. Thank you so much for talking about it. And once again, like, thank you so much, Sam, for being part of this episode. I wanted to actually announce my show and launch with your episode because I just knew our conversation is going to be amazing. Thanks so much again for making the time.
I appreciate it. I appreciate it so much. Thank you for the invitation. Yeah, I will be talking to you after this on it, but it's been a very interesting journey, and to be able to share that with you and to your audience, I'm very touched by the invitation. Thank you so much.
Thanks, Sam. Stay in touch and please do reach out to me if I can be of help in your world in any way.
Okay, will do. I
Okay.
appreciate it.
Take care. Bye.
All right, bye bye.